bonjour, and welcome to the Amateur Detective Club. This club is exactly how it sounds. A bunch of amateurs talking about their favorite mysteries. So if you encounter a real mystery or a murder, contact the proper authorities. Do not come to us. We do not know what we are doing. But enjoy the program. Allons-y. Let us begin.
I now call this meeting of the Amateur Detective Club to order. My name is Tristan Miller. This saucy sleuth. I had to decide whether or not I was sleepy. And I'm not. It's because I had tea before you came over.
Oh, there you go. And I'm Melissa Meli, the spy.
audibletrial.com/ADCpod. Still see if the link works. We're on the Scavenge Network. You can go to scavengenetwork.com. I love doing these at the beginning, by the way. This is a permanent change. I don't think I ever want to do an ad break again. I think doing it at the beginning makes way more sense, personally.
Well, we can talk to Tyler about it.
Yeah, that's the other thing. When he's back, we'll discuss. Scavengenetwork.com. They got a bunch of podcasts and whatnot and all that new media jazz.
Yeah, and if you want to give us money, which you should, because we do this for you.
And only you.
And only you. Yes, you, person who are listening to this. That's right. It's you. So give us money on our Patreon, which is...
Can she remember it? It's really easy. It's the same as all our other stuff.
ADC Pod. Patreon.com/ADC Pod.
There you go.
And
as hinted by me.
You can email us, Tristan really, mostly, amateurdetectiveclub@gmail.com, and follow us on the social media. Yep. We're also there at ADC Pod on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. What would we do with a TikTok for us, for the pod? What would that be?
What we would... Okay, so the boring, obvious, actual answer is we would post clips from the podcast on there. The fun answer is if we lived in, like, a house together or something. Or we did, like, an escape room and did, like, a video of that.
Right.
But it would be, and I cannot stress this enough, too much work. Because it would either be the laziest thing of like, here's a clip from this week's episode, or it would have to be a actual account. Or you could talk about Agatha Christie and history stuff. Like, people seem to respond to that of like, I mean, if you went into like explaining things, that's the other thing. If we all like sat down and were like, okay, well, I'm gonna give you the history of Poirot and Melissa does this and that sort of thing, and we did like history about stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it doesn't have to be that much work.
From what I've heard from like full-time TikTok content creators, is that yes, exactly, it is a pain.
Yeah, because
you have to be posting 4 to 5 times a day.
That's so many times,
and it has to be things that are like worth saying, which is like, we barely get that once a week here. Imagine trying to do it.
On purpose? Jeez.
Oh. Cotton Himmel. No, thank you. So that's what I think. What do you think our TikTok account would be?
Yeah. I think that we could do, well, in my mind, we do things like we go on a train, like we go on like a murder mystery weekend, and we like take a train ride and have like an experience in a train car, like Poirot does on Orient Express and that kind of thing.
I do have another pitch.
Sure.
And that is cosplays.
But
that, again, takes an inordinate amount of work.
Sure.
But like, if we did cosplays of like Poirot and uploaded sounds, you know, the way people lip sync.
Yeah.
Did those with like Poirot episodes or Only Murders in the Building or Murder, She Wrote.
Yeah.
That could become popular. But again, a pain in the ass.
Sure.
No matter what, it would be a pain in the ass.
Yeah. That makes sense. So one of the two great musical theater composers, the ones that Tristan knows.
Yes.
We lost over the weekend as we were recording this. Stephen Sondheim died, and that happened the day after Thanksgiving, which is when my family does our Thanksgiving dinner. So I got a text message as we were about to sit down and eat that Stephen Sondheim had died, and I had to go in the corner because I was visibly upset.
Mm-hmm.
And my family's like, "Are you all right?" So I did have to tell everyone what was going on, because I did look just
you were just
horrible.
like, I'm just so thankful for all of you.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, there's been a lot of dialogue on social media about, because the man was 91, he lived a long life, and that's of course never the reason that you're upset when an old person dies, right? Like, it's just the shot, no, you're never ready to lose someone.
No.
Like, and there's a lot of folks that are saying things like, the reason it's so hard to accept is because it's like the idea of trying to exist without air, because he just felt like he was always going to be there in a way. We didn't quite realize that he could die in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, he's mythic almost.
He is.
Yeah.
He is, and the impact he's had on musical theater. And he was mentored by the great Oscar Hammerstein.
Another one I know.
Yeah. We referenced in the last episode because he, of course, wrote the lyrics, among many other things, too. Carousel. So,
Is that the last one?
Yeah. No, 2 ago.
2 ago.
Wait. Right. It's the last one I listened to, because the last one we recorded isn't out yet.
Because I'm a stinker.
No, it was Thanksgiving week.
And I had a cold.
Yeah. But just a little fun anecdote.
I won 2, which I've already shared with you, but I'm interested to hear yours.
So the first time I ever heard of Stephen Sondheim that I can remember is when I was 8 years old. My mom was doing grad school at Brooklyn College, and they were doing a little night music, and they needed someone to play the grandmother in it. And so my mom, who was not nearly old enough, but she was older than all the college kids, and not an alto, but they recruited her to play the grandmother. And then they needed like a preteen, and I was 8, so they were like, good enough, she's precocious. So I played Frederica, who's 13 years old, in every other version of it. And so I was learning all about Sondheim. I was very excited, very into it. And I had to learn so many new words because Frederica has like a very good vocabulary. So I got a lot of good words out of that. But when I was hearing them say it, I kept hearing them say that it was Stephen Sondheim.
Yes.
Yeah. And I thought that was his name. My school also let me put up posters for it. And they were using one of the images that's, on the cast recordings for it. And it's like a tree silhouette. And there are people in the trees, but you can't really see them that well. And they're naked people. And so I didn't realize that when we were hanging them up. And they didn't realize that either. So in my elementary school,
perfect,
we were hanging these posters with images of naked people in trees, which they then decided, oh, I know, we'll just fill them in, and then it won't
just print new posters.
So it made them more obvious.
That's very funny.
It, like, you could see them better. And you could tell that they were naked. So I remember even at 8 years old thinking that they made it worse.
That's so funny.
Yep.
That's perfect. Despite being one of the two composers I know off the top of my head, don't know a lot of, like, I couldn't tell you, oh, he wrote this one. If I heard it, I would probably guess. I think Into the Woods.
Yes.
That one I know. But there was a bunch of clips of him going around, obviously. And one of them is he's playing the piano and just belting some song or another. Again, did not recognize it because I am uneducated in such matters. But he is just flat as can be, and it made me feel seen. And I love that that clip is just out there because he clearly was very talented musically. And so for a man who was as talented as he was to be caught in the act of singing poorly is beautiful. And I loved it so much. And I wish I would have saved it to my phone because it is. I wanted to send it to y'all, but I was like, I don't want to intrude on them being upset because I'm like, oh, that's a shame. Like, that's
Doesn't
how
have the same, right?
Yeah, because I'm not familiar with it. And that doesn't diminish the upsetness that's happening. But I didn't want to, like, intrude and go, hey, look at this very funny, weird clip I found of this person that's just died. It would be inappropriate. But if I find it again, I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
Because it's so... Because he's also having such a great time.
Yeah,
he doesn't give
sure.
a crap what's happening.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that's beautiful. And
it didn't matter. He wasn't going to sing them eventually.
Yeah.
Eventually, Bernadette Peters was going to sing it.
100%. And a clip was going around of him doing the Inside the Actors Studio. Like, he did, like, one of the first seasons. And he has such a bad attitude in that TV show. Because you can kind of see him go, yeah, okay, James. Which, beautiful. Love it. A+ personality.
Yeah. Yeah. I have heard so many good things about him. And it's interesting because I have heard that he was not humble, but it didn't make him unkind.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's great.
That's...
Like, he knew what he was about and was still also a human being about it. Like, yeah.
Yeah, because one can recognize one's talents without diminishing other people.
Yeah.
I think that's often where when people are like, oh, they're an egotist, it's like, no, they're insecure and they want to make others feel small so they feel big. Whereas if you're actually good at something, you don't need to be mean.
Yeah.
You can just be like, yeah, I'm a genius. Everyone's told me it for a few years now. I don't know what to tell you.
And now, of course, Sondheim had a huge influence on younger composers as well. So many, there are too many to name.
Notably, may I say, Jonathan Larson.
Yes.
Tick, Tick, Boom is just coming out. Is that where you were going as well?
Yes, partially.
Okay.
Because I don't know if you saw Lin-Manuel Miranda's tribute to him.
Yeah, in Times Square.
Oh, I mean, that, yes. But he also wrote something on social media.
Oh, no.
About it. That was really lovely. Like, I read it out loud to Rich and started crying.
Oh.
Yeah, there was a lot of that.
I understand. I was inconsolable when Robin died. So I can understand.
Yeah. And he said that because he was emailing with Steve the week earlier.
Oh, that's hard.
And just was saying to him, you know, how much Tick, Tick, Boom, how well it was being received and like the influence that he had on Jonathan Larson. And I mentioned earlier that Oscar Hammerstein was Stephen's mentor. And he said, oh, well, that's so nice to hear. I just hope that I have repaid a small fraction of what Oscar gave me. And of course, Lynn wrote in his tribute, like, Steve, you've repaid that many times over.
Yeah.
So.
And that little boy was Stephen Sondheim.
Yeah.
If you recall from 3 episodes ago.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, which is one of the reasons I think we'd be remiss if we didn't mention it on it. He's constantly in the ether in this show. And then also, obviously, you care about it, and it's worth noting.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, goodness. So speaking of music, we open on a voiceover.
Oh, right.
By our friend Jan,
Sure,
the bassoonist, talking about bassoons. And it takes extra time and care to warm her up
during the winter times.
Yeah, because she hasn't named her bassoon. She likes to think of her as a stranger. And you see that Charles is going in to help her after she's been stabbed.
And she grabs his little hand.
Yeah. And you very quickly see her then entering back into his apartment. Because she is all right. She is recovering now. So it's been a bit. But yeah. They're being all cute. He's helping her through her injury and
of being stabbed.
Her injury of being stabbed. Well, I mean, if you're stabbed, you get an injury.
That's true.
She seems to be recovering quite well. But
all things considered,
she has her little stab pangs and stuff.
Stab Pang is my favorite Drifters song.
So she's talking about how she has a big bassoon concert tomorrow night in the episode,
Yes.
And Charles is asking her, are you sure that this is going to be okay? And she's like, I just have to sit there and blow. And, she's trying to be kind of flirty and whatnot, but she's still in pain.
She goes, no reaction for that. And he goes, well, I like when you said it. It's very good. Very dry.
Yeah.
These two are very cute and dry together.
Very cute and dry. And he...
Better than ugly and wet.
I mean, is it? You want your humor to be dry, but okay, so he gets very adamant. He's very upset that they weren't listening to her when she was saying that it could be somebody else.
And it is noteworthy that the Ditmases do go to prison.
Yeah, there's a New York Post sitting on the coffee table.
They say the Ditmases are loxed up like lox and bagels.
That's why it's clear it's a Post article or
Daily News. Damn, Melissa, you got him.
Famously, the New York Post, not a great newspaper.
I know a couple of people that work for them, and they're all like, "It sucks your soul."
There you go. See, I know.
Like for those of you who are joining from the UK, it's like the Daily Mirror.
But yeah, Charles is talking about how he was really suckered into doing the podcast. Mm-hmm. He wanted to stop. He's definitely stopping now because
his girlfriend got stabbed.
Yeah.
And she goes, I'll support you, but you do really care about those two. And he goes, I do. At least one of them, which is very good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. He says, cutting people loose really isn't one of my things.
Yeah.
And Mabel's going to look at me with those Cocker Spaniel eyes. And I thought about that for a second and I went, yeah.
That would be hard.
That sounds correct. Cocker Spaniel eyes is about right. So then Steve gets a buzz from the lobby.
A ring-a-ding-ding.
Yeah. And
could you imagine if that's the actual doorbell? Just a ring-a-ding-ding.
That would be very funny. They're talking about maybe going on vacation.
That would be funny for like the first month.
Yeah, and then it would.
Then I would want to commit seppuku. Like,
so he answers the phone, and the doorman says something to him, and he says, "Yeah, all right, that's fine." And then he tells Jan that his stunt double, Pataki,
from Brazos, has come in for like a stunt convention, and they always want to make a visit.
So bad timing, which is also a Pataki thing, but they're coming up. So he puts on his coat and hat.
Because he's going to go, I'm going to fix this. Because he's going to go downstairs and get rid of Pataki.
Yeah. But Pataki's already upstairs. And Pataki walks in the door. And they do this very funny bit of comedy. Because...
Oh, it's always nice when a bit of comedy is funny.
Yeah. Because they're wearing the exact same thing. And it's so absurd. Yeah. And I can imagine the conversation that happened around this in the wardrobe department. Like, okay, because it's like...
How much?
You know, like, let's just have them wear the exact same thing. And it's like, yeah, but isn't that ridiculous? And they just went, yes.
Yeah. If you recall, we also got a Goofy and a Donald suit.
Yeah.
No, it's Bugs and Porky.
Bugs and Porky, right?
Yeah. Which are, if we're being honest, the counterparts in Disney.
Yes, of course. So they're wearing the exact same thing. They hug, and then they finally turn around to greet Jan, and it's Jane Lynch.
Of all people. From meme fame, Jane Lynch.
Yes, Jane Lynch. Famous for being a meme and also acting in a bunch of stuff.
At this point, probably more famous for being a meme. Isn't that an interesting thing?
Is that right?
Yeah, because I'm sure there are a lot of people that know her as the lady from the meme. Which is why I've thought about this a lot about acting. We're at a cursed point where anything a person can do in a movie can become a GIF or a meme. And I've thought about this for years when like Tumblr was really popular and they would do GIF sets. I'm like, that's gotta make every actor so self-conscious right now. Because any stupid expression you make can be immortalized forever on a loop.
So Mabel is painting the windows of the building in her aunt's apartment.
So beautiful. It's the opening title sequence is what it is.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. And she's in her little jumpsuit overall thing again.
And she gets a letter under the door. And it's a memo.
Right.
Saying, all right, there's a building meeting today to discuss the murder and podcast nonsense.
Fantastic. And in the scene also, tie-dye guy.
Oscar.
Thank you. Says he has a meeting with a lawyer the next day to try and help clean up his record and get his act together.
Just to clear his name.
And part of that is getting his act together and like moving forward in society as an ex-convict.
I see what you're saying, but like,
yeah, he's fine. He's not like a mess. He just needs someone to convince other people that he's not a mess.
Right. Okay. Yes. Get his act together makes me think of like a very it's a very like snap to it kid kind of feeling to it, and I'm like, I feel like he actually has his act together,
more or less, yeah.
Right, but like he needs legally to get his name cleared now that other people have been arrested for the murder that he was imprisoned for.
Correct. And he also does say, like, I'm glad, he says something to the effect that I'm very happy that those people are in prison.
Yeah.
Which is great because I don't think we spent a lot of time on it last episode with him specifically.
Yeah.
Also, it should be noted that Oscar and Mabel, they're sleeping together, like in the same bed. Like he's staying over. It's serious.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense also because his dad lives in the building. So it's like, well, am I going to stay with my dad or am I going to stay with this girl?
Easy choice.
Yeah,
Dad's hot. Dad is hot.
Well, Oscar is hot.
Yeah, I know.
And she says, wait, what happened here? Because he has shaved. And, you know, he needs to be clean shaven because lawyers like that.
Yeah, he needs to look respectable.
Yeah.
And as you know, all lawyers are above the age of 50, obviously.
Yes.
And therefore still think that if you have a beard, you're a beatnik.
Right. I have a friend
I thought you were going to say I have a beard.
No, not on me.
Okay, so that has some implications because of slang, but I'm going to let you go on about your friend there.
No, I
Rich,
have...
if you're listening, you should call.
I have a friend who's a lawyer who is not 50, but as a lawyer seems like he should be.
Yeah. If you
You get
go
what
into
I'm
law,
saying.
you are automatically an old person.
Yeah, exactly right. He's the daddiest dad that doesn't sound as like yikes. Cut that.
The most dad.
He's the most dad of my dad friends.
I am not cutting that, by the way.
Oh no.
It's the funniest thing you've ever said. He's the daddiest dad? Oh my god. You could not believe the dad on this dad.
He's
a very fatherly figure.
He just seems annoyed all the time.
Is that what you think a dad is?
Yes.
Interesting.
Not mine.
Oh, I was gonna say, I was like, we don't have time to unpack all of that.
Not mine. Just, in pop culture.
Peter Griffin is annoyed a lot. That's fair.
There you go.
Famous father, Peter Griffin.
Yep, that's the only one we know. So
I'm a dad.
Oh goodness.
Just so y'all know, it is now 11:04.
No, it's not.
Of this recording.
Why are we doing this?
Because you came over and you had a sandwich and we talked for 2 hours.
Yeah.
It was 9:00 when we started, quote unquote, recording.
Yeah. So Oliver's gonna be evicted.
Oh yeah, he goes to his apartment and he's got an eviction notice.
He does. And that's the whole scene.
That's the whole scene.
And
he turns directly to the camera and goes, "Oh man, I'm gonna be evicted. Nerds."
You can believe it. So
it's a living.
So then we cut back to Pataki with Jan and Charles, and they're talking about their relationship, and
an important bit of information that Charles has already relayed to Jan is that Pataki stole his girlfriend when he was on Brazos.
Yeah.
And ran away with her. And then he had to just keep employing Pataki because everyone loved her so much. And if he had fired her, which, by the way, I don't know if an actor has the power. I mean, he must have been an executive producer at that point.
At that point, yeah.
Anyway, very inside baseball. But he couldn't because everyone would hate him. And he wasn't particularly well liked on the set of Brazos.
Right.
Which, by the way, he has a poster of as an apartment, which is seen, I think, for the first time in this episode. And it is very funny to look at. That's all. It's just like, it's like him in some cool sunglasses, looking like an idiot.
Yeah, it's great. So once Jan finds out that he stole his girlfriend, she stole that Saz Pataki is her name, that Saz stole Charles's girlfriend, then she says, well, I don't like her anymore. Yeah. Never mind. Mabel and Oscar knock on the door, ask her if she's feeling better. And then
yeah, because both times they immediately assume it's Charles that's answering the door, so they're mid-sentence with something else.
Yeah.
I can't remember what Maple says, but...
Well, she first sees... Yeah, I don't remember either.
Yeah.
But and then she first sees Saz back-turned, looking at the... Tristan just made an interesting gesture. We don't know what that is, but yeah, so she sees Saz, assumes it's Charles. Saz turns around, they yelp, and then Charles is right there. They yelp again.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on?
Because Zaz has an awful moment where she goes, hey, to Jan, how about rustling up some coffee?
Yeah.
And then the knock happens, and Jan goes, I'll get the door, and Charles goes, I'll get the coffee. Which we're gonna get into it, but I do not like Zaz. For me, Two Cat in the Hat. Don't enjoy Zaz. No, thank you. I could not. Mm-mm.
Yeah, that makes sense.
A disruption, an annoyance, makes Oliver seem reasonable.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So, we get the very brief explanation. Then Oliver is knocking on the door. What he is saying is, Bunny is such a blank face.
Yeah.
And he says, oh, hi, Jan. How's your back? She says, it's getting better. And then he immediately shoves a big box in her.
And he has a cart full of his stuff.
Yeah. It's like one of those carts you get when you go to a hotel.
Bellhop cart.
Yeah. It's like
a bell cart? Is it just a bell cart?
Sure. Tristan's looking it up.
Mm-hmm.
So Oliver's basically like, hey, I'm moving in. And then he sees Saz and says, oh, so I'm going to be the one to say it. Charles, you've had too much work done. And then Oliver starts poking at her face and stuff. Mm-hmm. And is this filler? Finally turns around and Charles is there. And we get the same moment that we got with Mabel, basically. Exactly.
It's just called a luggage cart.
Oh, yeah. Well, all right.
Very German. What's it do? It's a cart for the luggage. It's a luggage cart.
That's it.
Don't have to think about it.
So, Saz has some thoughts about the case.
Oh, yeah.
And you do see Saz and Charles, push their glasses up at the same time.
Yeah, a lot of Marx Brothers malarkey in this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cute.
Yeah, it is cute.
And everyone wants to listen to Zaz.
Right.
But then Jan pipes up with, you did not want to listen to me. And Oliver says, well, Zaz is a stunt person. I think they know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Which is so rude.
It is. But yeah, so Saz is talking about we're missing motive. Howard the cat guy, what motive did he have? Mm-hmm. And they're like, well, I mean, none, I guess.
And she surmises that it's a crime passionnel.
Right.
Because he was poisoned and then shot. That infers premeditation. And then she goes, there's this bunch of garbage. And she goes, these glasses. And then she smells them. And she goes, brandy. It's
whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
Or bourbon. I mean, which is
bourbon is a whiskey, yeah, as we all know. Used to be my go-to.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, and so they're like, oh, okay, that's an interesting theory. Yeah, that makes sense. And Jan is visibly bristling.
Yeah. Oliver says, I think we saw those. They just made me thirsty.
Yeah, which I thought was very... I thought that was very funny. I did not laugh, but I thought it was very funny.
Yeah.
I was like, that's such a weird... What a weird thing to... Oliver is a beautiful mess.
Mm-hmm.
Because he can't not just say whatever it is that's going on in his head.
Yeah.
A beautiful vessel of whatever.
Yep. Saz says that Charles could have never thought of this because he lacks passion. And he comes behind Jen and says, well, it turns out I can be very passionate with the right person. Really hitting it home.
Yeah, and he goes to rub her back and then immediately hurts her because of the stabbing wound.
Yeah. They're all listening to Saz's ideas.
Yeah.
So then we go to this meeting.
Yes, that Bunny has congregated
And
everybody.
Bunny is my least favorite kind of person.
A woman.
Maybe not my least favorite kind of person, but up there. It's in the top at least 5.
I'm so sorry. The fact that you did not react at all That's what I'm laughing at. I want to make that very clear. But not even a. Normally, you give me a yeah.
Well, I did react because I revised it because I was like, no, that's fair. A man is got to be on the top of the list of my least favorite kind of person. But
But she's an awful, cantankerous hag of a woman.
she's unhappy and clearly wants everyone else to be unhappy. She is wearing a dope fit though.
Yeah. I don't know if she's unhappy. I think she just wants her apartment to go good for once in her gosh darn life. She's like at the head of the society, so she's hearing Lord knows what Oliver has complained about over the years.
I guess.
But yeah, she also
she
is...
just seems deeply unpleasant.
Yeah, oh, she's definitely unpleasant. I don't know if she's unhappy. She might go home and go, I love my life.
Maybe. Ugh. I find that people who try to make other people unhappy, not always, but generally, tend to be unhappy themselves.
Yeah.
So they're saying, listen, there's a murderer here, and could you please stop murdering people? Which is very funny.
Yes. But basically she says... They go, okay, they want us to stop the podcast. So Oliver tries his best to give a rousing speech of like, don't you want us to catch a murderer that's in the building? And everyone's like, not really. The therapist is like, people don't want to come to me because I live in the murder apartment. And there are similar stories throughout.
Yeah.
All the tenants, with the exception of Cat Daddy, who's like, I think they're doing a good thing because the toxicology report from my cat, it was poisoned with the same poison as Tim Kono. And then also that freaky, sexy weirdo, whoever killed my cat, ripped off her leg. And then Bunny is like, why would they do that? And it's like, she had some gams on her. It's a very weird performance.
So weird and funny.
But this is during a vote that Bunny has proposed to evict them.
Yeah, and Mabel says, and this was actually a good addition, like, you can't evict my aunt because it is her apartment.
Immediately I thought of that.
Right. And they're like, no, just you.
Yeah, just you got to get out of here.
But yes. So they've already evicted Oliver. But yeah, they're voting to kick out Mabel and Charles, and they all do.
Yes.
Vote to do that.
That's true. So now they've lost their homes. They don't have any leads. It's pretty desperate.
Yeah.
And they take and Oscar is also with them at the meeting, and they all head to the elevator, and they're starting to like discuss what to do, and it's getting heated, and Oscar, she goes, I'm gonna do some errands that aren't in this elevator. See ya. Which is the literal line that he says.
It is. It's
which is
funny.
very good.
Yeah. And it should be noted that in this scene, Oliver is wearing a tie-dyed sweatshirt with the podcast logo on it.
Which, of course, we need to see if they're actually available.
Yeah, it would be pretty great.
I can't imagine they wouldn't be.
No, it's...
At the very least on Etsy.
Oh, at the very least. Yeah.
Minimum.
But yeah. So it's tie-dye, obviously, because of tie-dye guy. The rest of you, if you're a murderer, stop murdering.
Yeah, is what Bunny says at the end of the movie, which is very funny.
It is.
And they're in this elevator, and Charles goes, oh, I'm sorry, before this, Charles says, don't worry, we're stopping the podcast.
Yeah.
When they think that's what will get them to be able to keep their apartments. I'm so sorry, I glossed over that. Yeah.
But it's very much like too little too late is what they're saying.
Yes, but obviously they didn't discuss that beforehand.
Right.
The three of them, and so that's what they're having a discussion about now in the elevator. And Charles essentially says, I'm done. I'm done about it. I can't remember what he says about Mabel. That's mean. I think because she says some quip and he goes, oh, here's mean Mabel. You think you got it all figured out when you're 26 years old.
Yeah.
And Oliver, she's not a kid. And he goes, no, she isn't a kid. We're just old, which
Right.
I think is a very good line.
Yeah.
And he goes, you always rope everybody into all this stuff, just like you do all the time. This is Splash 2.
Yeah.
And Oliver says, that's very mean, but a very good callback, but very mean.
Yeah.
Which is, it's such an interesting thing about, they've built two characters that since they're in show business, understand what a callback is.
Oh, sure.
Whereas like, in any other show, that would not be said. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I guess not everyone knows what a callback is.
Yeah.
Huh.
It's when you you reference something that's already been said.
Right. Yeah, and he's like, sorry, I'm not good at confrontation. And Mabel's like, that was pretty good.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
For the record, I'm 28.
Yeah. Which, glowing.
Yeah.
My Lanta. Are we still doing that?
No,
We should bring it back.
we should.
What is it from?
I don't remember.
Where did it originate? People just started saying it at my local community theater, and I thought it was so obnoxious. Because I was like, just cuss. Just do it.
Oh yeah, that's got to be why. Isn't it just like in reference to the brand name and it just sounds like it should be a curse?
Is that a brand?
Yeah. Of like a heartburn medication?
Oh, my Lanta origin.
Okay, great. Tristan knows. They're preparing themselves.
It's the stupidest thing. So it's an antacid. You are correct.
Uh-huh.
So way to go. Way to have you remember that. It was popularized on Full House when someone said something so absurd that they would presumably get a stomach ache that someone said something so absurd.
Oh, sure.
And it got popular from that. I did not know it was a product.
Yeah.
I did not know. I am angry for some reason. Capitalism has rotted our brains.
It really has.
Just say Jiminy Christmas like you're supposed to. I did earlier say, in lieu of saying Jiminy Christmas, did say Jimmy Kimmel, and I might start doing that.
That's very funny.
Thank you.
Oh, good. Oh, so Charles, Mabel, and Oliver.
Charles Mabel Savage.
Charles Mabel Savage, sure. Get back to Charles's apartment, and Saz is helping Jan take a sweater off, and he's very disturbed.
Yeah, Charles is. And
Yeah.
he goes, of course. And they're like, what do you think? I need my bandage changed. What do you think is going on here? And then it cuts to a close of Steve's face, and he's like, oh boy. He doesn't say that, but his eyes do.
Right, exactly. And he says something very sad because she says, do you actually think I would cheat on you? And he says, I think anyone wonderful would cheat on me. But, she says she's packing up her stuff because she has her bassoon concert tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And she just, wants to get a good night's sleep in her own apartment or whatever. And he says, I would love to go. I would love to hear you play. And she says, oh, no, I think I would be too upset, too nervous, you not seeing me at my best.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, well, all right. But,
I don't feel good about this situation.
Yeah, essentially. So he leaves.
Yeah.
She
says,
leaves.
I call you.
Yeah. And then we hear the sound of a bassoon playing from across the courtyard.
Mm-hmm. And then it goes to Mabel's little face, who's lying in bed with Oscar, who's staring at Oliver, who is sleeping on her couch.
Yeah, and there's no walls.
There's no walls because it's still under construction.
Yeah.
And Oliver says, "You better not try anything there." And she goes, "I don't know. It's a pretty, like, steamy situation we're in."
Very romantic.
Yeah, which I love.
Yeah. So Oscar wakes up and Oscar wakes up wearing a suit. No. It's the next morning and we see Oscar wearing a suit, gonna go to meet his lawyer.
Doesn't it start with Oliver waking up on the couch, just being like, doesn't it?
It happens at pretty much the same time.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure we didn't miss this moment of him saying out loud as you hear his bones creak. Him going, "Oh, this is gonna take a while." It's very good.
Because he's sleeping on a couch and he's
50, 60 years old. How old? No, he's got to be 70.
I think he's in his 60s in this show.
In the show, yeah, I guess. I'm going to say, I want to look more about Mylanta, but I'm looking at Martin Short age.
So they start chatting after Oscar leaves, and they're still going off of Saz's theory and thinking that, it was a lover since there were the two bourbon glasses. How old is Martin Short?
Martin Short is 71. Steve Martin is 76.
Steve Martin is 76?
He does not look bad.
No.
He went gray when he was like 27. So he's looked old for a very long time.
Yeah.
So his face all of a sudden made sense when he was like 50.
Yeah. A
gilf, if you will.
Yeah, sure. Rich said something like, Steve Martin has looked to be about 65 for the past 30 years.
That's true.
Yeah.
He absolutely has.
Yeah. And the thing is, he's in his 70s now and looks
exactly
young.
The same.
Yeah.
He looks like, again, like he'd be 50 or 100. He's unknowable.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Oscar is wearing a suit and kisses Mabel good morning.
Yeah.
And that hurt my heart because I missed that. But he's going to go see his lawyer friend.
Right. So they've woken up and they're going through the sex toy box.
Yes, because of the liver situation.
Right.
I realized you had said all of this while I was looking up ages. I'm sorry.
That's okay. And they're both in their pajamas and Oliver has his hair mussed, and so it's fun.
Oliver in these beautiful silk pajamas.
Yeah. So they go back through the day Tim Kono died.
Yeah.
And it's very cute because Mabel's like, I was rocking this great yellow fur jacket.
Mm-hmm.
And then I ran into these two old guys in the elevator.
And Oliver admittedly goes, "Yeah, it really popped on you." And then he goes, "And then we had that great moment where we connected about your beats." And she just kind of stares at him.
Yeah, it's very cute. And then...
Oh, pardon me.
And then she says, and Tim got on the...
Sorry, I'm so embarrassed with what just happened. I thought I had a little... But it was a burp. Excuse me. I'm terribly sorry.
So they're remembering Tim got on with the garbage bag and was having the conversation about the package on the phone.
Feels like forever ago.
I know, right? And so they're talking about, okay, well, all of his trash bags had orange handles, but the one he was holding had blue handles. So then we cut to Charles, and he's making his omelet, and Saz comes in, and she's checking on him.
The way Jane Lynch walks in this episode, it feels like she's doing some capital A acting in this episode.
Yeah.
And it feels like at any moment she could pull a rabbit out of a hat or some sort of New Year's party trick. It's very weird.
Yeah.
Choices were made.
Yeah.
But she comes in holding a boa constrictor and no, anyway.
No. But she does eat half his omelet.
Now, there's a very good moment. Number when she comes over to apologize.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Mhm.
Character growth, presumably. Inferred character growth. But also, she doesn't just eat half his omelet. He's made it for himself.
Yeah.
She takes it.
Right.
Then they sit down at the table and she takes the silverware. Then over the over the course of the conversation, Charles slides her the glass of water that's already on the table.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, it's very funny and it's great character. Is what I have to say about that moment.
It is. And so she says, Cookie left me too. I took that hit for you as well. It's like, all right, no.
Oh, yeah, sure. After 20 years, though. So, they had a good run.
Yeah. So Saz says, and your lady's playing this very important bassoon concert tonight. And he says, yeah, she doesn't want me to come. And she says, no, you should still go.
Yeah.
This is the girl for you. She's going to be great for you. You should really go to her concert. She wants you to go, even if she says she doesn't, essentially. It has occurred to Oliver and Mabel that they haven't spoken to Tim's next door neighbor.
That's true. Which is very weird.
Yes.
That's the first place you should... Anyway.
I mean...
They're all silly gooses.
They're silly gooses, and they've gotten distracted by other things.
By the Ditmases, by the jewelry, which is something they say even. They're like, we got distracted.
Yeah. By Howard and the cat's leg.
That Charles still has somewhere in his apartment.
Oh my gosh, it's so weird. So they knock on the door of Tim's next door neighbor, and she is pleasant to them.
That is a word for...
Oh yeah, she's cute too. But she doesn't seem annoyed to see them.
No, she's
like
very
so
cool.
many other people in the building would be.
Yeah. And Oliver even says that. I was just like, I know we don't have the best reputation right now. She goes, you're doing a better job than the cops.
Yeah. Exactly.
And they're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. And she says she never saw anyone come in and out, but we certainly heard a late night visitor.
Yes, a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, I hated Tim Kono, but he knew what he was doing. I've never heard a woman scream like that.
Yeah, and Mabel's face is amazing. She looks horrified.
Yeah, 'cause that's her childhood friend.
Yeah. And then we cut to Charles sitting at the symphony. And yes.
Is this intercut with them figuring out what one of the toys is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Charles is sitting at the symphony. You see him get in his seat before it starts. Jan is sitting up there getting ready to play.
Do you know what orchestra hall this is? Is it Geffen Hall?
I'm not sure.
Okay, it looked familiar. I think I've been in this orchestra hall.
Yeah, I may also have been as well.
Love living in New York, isn't it grand?
Mm-hmm. So, they're looking through the sex toy box again, and Oliver's very funny. They're trying to figure out, what are these used for? What can we figure out about this woman?
Yeah, and he goes, I remember what this does, and then he starts waving it around in no way, shape, or form. Does that work?
No.
In any way? In no possible way is the manner in which Martin Short is waving this around sexual.
No, it's very funny. And so Mabel looks at it and she says, it makes me think that maybe she liked to pretend she was a cat because it looks like a little
cat toy,
fuzzy cat toy.
And here's the thing: in that first episode, when they discover the box of sex toys, you said, "Is that a cat toy or is that a sex toy?" And I was like, "It's a sex toy, as far as they know."
Right. So,
but it's also great because that leads you to think, "Oh, maybe the cat thing."
Yeah.
Immediately.
Exactly. So they look at the bottom of it, and it says "exotic instruments," and Oliver says, "Someone young look that up."
Yeah.
And so Mabel starts Googling.
Very funny.
Then we cut back to the symphony, and there's a very excited young man sitting, and Charles makes conversation because he's just beaming.
He's so proud.
Yeah, and he says to the young man, "Oh, you look excited." And he says, "Yeah, I'm here to see my girlfriend. She's a prodigy." And Charles says, "Oh, thank goodness." And I think for a second, Charles thought two things. Charles thought, this man is too young to have a girlfriend in the symphony.
Yes.
And 2, is his girlfriend my girlfriend?
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
It works on a couple levels. It's very good.
Oh, thank God. And then the conductor comes in and introduces the young bassoonist.
First chair, yeah.
Yeah.
The youngest first chair bassoonist ever.
And of course, Jan has said that she is the first chair bassoonist.
That's true.
And you...
First chair. I don't know what that means. From the 3rd episode. That's the interaction between him and Mabel.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So, she is not sitting down yet, this bassoonist, and she comes out, and she's a young woman.
She's braces. That young. She's braces young.
Yeah. With some very curly hair as well.
Very fun hairdo.
Yep. Charles is confused.
He's confused. And then it cuts to Jan. No, that's the end, right?
I mean, you see Jan a couple times in this.
Okay. But then we cut back to Oliver and Mabel, right?
Yeah.
And Mabel has successfully found what it is, and it's musical instrument.
Why is there a bassoon cleaner in Tim Kono's toy box?
And then it cuts to Jan's face, and she looks and she sees Charles, and it cuts to Charles, and his nose is bleeding, which happens when he's anxious.
Yep.
And that's the episode.
That's the episode.
And it was good enough that I almost started at the next one, but then you were already on your way, which is why I texted you, let me know when you're on your way.
Yeah.
So I'm like, do I have 20 minutes? It's like, no.
No.
So, what did you think?
This isn't my favorite episode. The whole Pataki thing is kind of funny, but it's very silly, and it feels a little thrown in there. The twists are very interesting. I'm a little iffy on this one. It's not my favorite. I'd probably give it like a 3.
Okay. This is by far the worst episode. I'll get the rating either way, like 2 at best.
Okay.
I laughed once, and it was when he pushes the glass across the table. So as far as comedy goes, this one did not work for me. I don't mind Jane Lynch.
She's good.
She's a good actor.
It's not, yeah.
She's particularly good if you've watched Marvelous Miss Maisel. She's very good in that.
Yeah, she's so good in that.
Very good performance in that.
Yeah.
Did not care for what was happening in this episode.
Right, it's not her fault.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not criticizing her. She is a performer. It's her fault because I don't enjoy her performance, and she was part of that.
Okay.
In fact, I think it stands out and doesn't fit with everything that they've built up to this. Again, it's too Cat in the Hat. It's like literally like zany. And we've had some like larger than life characters, but it feels so out of place.
Yeah.
Again, she, like, when I imagine what she looks like, I almost imagine, and maybe it's the getup she's in the whole time, because she's like wearing a hat and glasses. She looks like a clown, like a literal, like, I almost imagine clown makeup on her when I think of her. So that just fell flat. It did not work for me. I didn't find her flipping around being particularly funny or amusing, and that's like really like some heavy hitting in the laughs. I think Oliver thinking that that Charles had facial reconstruction surgery is like a funny concept, but it could have been, I think, better executed. Every idea in this, I think, could have It's just a dud. It's just a dud. And like, I was wondering when we were going to get to one. Does that make sense? I was
yeah.
like, one of them is going to not work for me.
Yeah.
And I'm glad it's not the last one.
Yeah.
I like the twist at the end.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see it coming necessarily. Jan was on the list, though. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
For someone to, because it couldn't, but then in retrospect, I was kind of figuring it out. I was like, well, it couldn't be Mabel because they've already done that, but it might be because that's how we begin the thing.
Sure.
So she's involved in some way. So it's going to be interesting figuring out how. And then also, I was like, well, as we know from our Agatha Christie, poison is a woman's weapon. Therefore, which is, I think, another reason why they have Pataki be a woman, is to kind of throw, because you're immediately suspicious of this person, because we've never met them before, and it's an episode away from the finale. So I was expecting also something to her to be involved in some way.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So it was a weird, and it's a weird thing to, again, sort of throw in at the last minute.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, if it had been, because this character, if it was 3 episodes ago, would have been Teddy Demas.
Yeah.
But they can't do that now. So it just seems really, really out of place. The whole thing, the whole bit, as it were.
Right. It's just, this character comes in and it feels unnatural, like, because they're not from the building and they don't come in a way that is, logical. Because a couple characters from like outside of the building do, of course, come in.
Yeah.
But it all flows.
Yeah, and all the big characterizations in the last episode with all the fans, like, that made sense to me. But I don't know. I don't know. It just didn't make sense to me. And, it's through no fault of anyone that it doesn't work for me. Does that make sense? Like, it's their fault because they did it, but it's not their fault that I don't like it. Does that make sense?
I mean, I suppose.
Just like, any other piece of art, you look at it, and if you don't like it, it's like, well, it's not their,
Yeah.
A painter's going to paint blue, and sometimes you want to see green. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, it just felt out of place in a way that this show doesn't do, typically.
Yes. But here, I might be coming around to the character, though, in as much as you do see why Charles would like Mabel and Oliver, because he is used to being traded in a certain way, specifically by Pataki for 10 plus years on this show. And Pataki is cruel to Charles other than giving him a pep talk at the end.
Yeah.
And even during that, she still steals from him.
Yeah.
It's kind of the two qualities, the two most negative qualities that Charles calls both Mabel and Oliver out on.
Okay.
Which is, Mabel is mean.
Mm-hmm.
And Charles is eccentric.
Yeah.
And Pataki is both of those things.
Yeah.
So you kind of get where he might, but it's still, I don't think, justified enough.
Yeah.
Thematically, it works on that way, but I had to talk for literally 5 minutes to get there.
Right.
So maybe.
Right. Like, she's a vehicle for Charles's character.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it feels, I hate to use the word lazy, because
it feels forced.
It feels forced.
Yeah. And I feel like there could have been another character for him to talk to that we've already met.
Yeah.
That made sense.
Right.
Like, even what would have been, you want to hear my fix?
Sure.
He would have called the detective and said, by the way, we're stopping the podcast. And she goes, oh, well, you can't do that, because then it's like, no, I'm done. And then he kind of explains what's happened.
Yeah.
And then she goes, you can't give up on that.
Right.
And it coming from her would mean something, because we've already seen her have relationship issues previously and get through it.
Yeah.
It would have deepened her character and would have been more interesting in my mind.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, Charles played a police officer on TV, so
Mm-hmm.
it would have been another way for him to relate to her.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, or she could have called him about something, or
Yeah.
like setting that up. I think would have been far better. But you have to. There's a great Star Wars podcast called Force Center, and they have this little mantra, which is you have to engage with the story that's presented to you, because we can sit here and pitch ideas all day, but I don't know, it just didn't work for me, and that's a shame because I normally like Jane Lynch well enough, and
Yeah.
and you know me, I like zany comedy pretty well.
Sure.
But for this one, it just didn't work.
Yeah. The matching outfit thing was like the peak of it for me.
Sure.
I was like, all right, I buy it. And then it was too much.
Yeah, it escalated from there, which I didn't think they could do.
Right.
Yeah, it's very strange. It's a very strange choice.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like an interesting, like, thematic metaphor of like, oh, Charles has to literally grapple with himself. This
Sure.
person that looks exactly like him.
Yeah.
Or what would have been, just bring Bugs and Porky back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then have him work it out.
Right. The end of the episode's good.
The end of the episode is so good.
Right.
Him having the nosebleed, excellent. Cinema at its finest.
Oh, yeah.
Way to go.
The intercutting with Mabel and Oliver.
The reveal at the end is like the last 5 minutes is really good.
Yeah.
But even it's a slow start. I did say out loud, oh, I'm glad they're actually dealing with this with Oliver getting evicted. Because it was kind of been pushed to the side for a couple of episodes.
Yeah.
Because of them getting kidnapped and all.
Yeah. No, I mean, they set it up. It had to happen.
Yeah.
But it was almost too much with the meeting.
Yeah, that seemed weird.
Mm-hmm.
Of like, why would you, going back to your point, maybe she is vindictive and cruel, because why would you publicly shame someone like that?
Yeah.
Weird.
It's weird.
It's a weird episode. I almost feel like, and there's a lot of blocking in this where people are 6 feet apart.
Sure.
And I almost feel like is like there were rewrites.
Maybe.
Which is very well could be, which happens all the time with TV.
Yeah.
And the only reason we're so picky about this one is because all the rest of them have been so good. And so by the standard that the show has set up, we're all of a sudden like, buh.
Right.
And I want to make that clear.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, even just in the last 5 minutes, it all clicks so well that
oh yeah,
it's like, yes, that's what you do well. Just we don't need this other character, this one-off. Yeah.
Again, very Cat in the Hat.
Yeah.
Shows up, is a disruptant, steals your food, tells you what to do.
Yeah.
Ugh, I can't. A bully.
Yeah.
I can't stand a bully.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I've always thought of the Cat in the Hat as a bully, and everyone else is like, it's fun to have fun. I'm like, it's not with this guy. I'm with the fish. You shouldn't let strangers into your home.
Okay. Yeah.
The fish is right. That's the thing that a lot of people don't understand.
Yeah, no. Well, we got one more.
We got one more. We'll see. See if it's any good. Last one.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't let this. I think it would be so interesting if I hated it. I'm not going to go in wanting to hate it, obviously, but it would be so interesting if I hated the ending and you loved it. That would be so compelling for the drama of it all.
Well, you already know which episode is my favorite because I've said it repeatedly.
Yes. And you already know so far which one is my favorite.
Yeah. The pilot.
Yeah.
You liked the pilot.
Yeah,
Yes.
and you liked Boy from 6B.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's it. That's the podcast.
Our podcast.
And maybe theirs. They might end it. They said they ended it. This Charles is out, so.
And they're only doing murders in the building.
So another murder has to happen. That's the sequel. That's season 2. They start murdering people. So they keep the podcast going. But then they get in too deep. And they kill everybody. And they're left alone with Bugs and Porky. I call this meeting a Glamour Club close. It's past midnight.
Oh my God, it is.